I'm coming at you live on tape from Sydney, Ohio. And on this week's wrestling show, we're talking about the Heroes of Wrestling event from October 10th, 1999. Will go down as one of the worst wrestling pay-per-views in the history of wrestling and one of the worst wrestling shows in the history of wrestling. Now, this was thought up by Fosstone Productions. It was pretty much cheap cash in. They thought they're going to take stars from the 80s and early 90s and put them on a show in 99. It was a nostalgia show and get people to pay to see them wrestle. Now, the first person they approached was Sid Vicious. They approached him in May 99. Now, in June 99, he signed an exclusive deal with WCW. So he was not on the show. They also approached Terry Funk, Bam Bam Bigelow, Vader, and others who were also not on the show. Gordon Solie was originally supposed to announce the show with Ted DiBiase, but Gordon Solie, a few days before, came down with throat cancer that he'd later die from, and so dropped out. And we don't know why Ted DiBiase dropped out. Maybe he saw that this was just a cheap money grab. So he dropped out. So instead, we got Richard Rosenbloom as our lead announcer, with Dutch Mantell as our color man. And Richard Rosenbloom knew nothing about wrestling. He couldn't even identify a dropkick. Dutch Mantell tried to ease his way through and came off kind of well until Lou Albano later joined them on the announce desk and uttered gibberish. Now, this card did have literally no saving graces. The one match had the Bushwhackers, billed as the former Bushwhackers, to save them from being sued by WWF, versus the Iron Sheik and Nikolai Volkov. And this match was rated negative as many stars as possible by the people who watched it. It was barely a match. The one-man gang match versus Abdullah the Butcher was a bloody hardcore match, which was not supposed to be a bloody hardcore match, and resulted in a double countout. They did, however, put a fast-paced match on there with Too Cold Scorpio versus Julio Fantastico, who had barely been in the business 5 years, but this was a run-of-the-mill spot fest that didn't go over with the fans. Now, their plan with this original Heroes of Wrestling show was if it got a 49,000 buy rate, they were going to run 5 of these shows quarterly and make it a regular thing. It did not get a 49,000 buy rate. It drew 2,500 people at the casino in Mississippi, and got a 29,000 people bought the pay-per-view. Because even fans in 99 saw this was bullshit. The Samoan SWAT team was on the card. They wrestled. I only did prep for this for 2 days, so I can't quite remember who all wrestled. I remember the bad matches. There was a co-main event, and it was supposed to be Jake the Snake Roberts versus Jim Neidhart. Now, Jim Neidhart was never quite known for being a great wrestler, but Jake the Snake was. And then the other main event was supposed to be Yokozuna versus King Kong Bundy. Now, there's a problem with both matches. First, we're going to go with the problem with King Kong Bundy versus Yokozuna. King Kong Bundy versus Yokozuna, both men had it in their contracts that neither could be pinned or submitted. So they did not have a finish for that match. Now, Jake the Snake, they brought him in because they were riding high off the fact that had found sobriety and was doing wrestling again, and therefore he had regained his popularity. Well, when he's shown up to work, they don't know if he got drunk at the casino or if he got drunk before he came to the casino, but he was drunk. He had fallen off the wagon, and he was drunk. And so when it came time for him to do his promo, he staggered out, started slurring his words, and started off with, "If you want to play 21, I got 22. If you want to play blackjack, I got 2 of those. If you want to play aces and eights, I got some more of those too." And ended his promo with chanting DDT. So you know this was going to be a bad co-main event. So he staggered his way to the ring, slid the bag with the snake in the ring, staggered his way to the back, staggered his way back to the ring, this time shirtless. Like he didn't trust the guy who was collecting shirts around the ring with the shirt. This time greeting fans, and had Ring Rat, which is a female wrestling fan who wants to hook up with a wrestler, put her hands on his chest, then staggered his way in the ring, brought the snake out, and imitated masturbating with it, at which point the camera cut to wide shots of the crowd. Then he laid on the mat with the snake on top of him and started kissing the snake. Now, at this point, the plan changed. They sent Jim Neidhart out there, but they also sent King Kong Bundy out there to make it a tag team match, because Jake was so inebriated he could barely stand up straight. Then they sent Yokozuna out there, who was at his heaviest at this point and could not move around too well. So this tag team match, it lasted about 15 minutes, and you only got to see King Kong Bundy and Yokozuna together for about 5. But as I said, Yokozuna was at his heaviest and was sucking wind heavily. This match mercifully ended when King Kong Bundy splashed Jake in the corner and pinned him, though he had just tagged out to Yoko. Then Yoko, in order to try to make Jake's drunken antics looked like they were scripted, tried to beat up the commissioner of this Heroes of Wrestling organization, started to beat him up and tried to get Jake to do it too, but Jake was too damn drunk to know what was going on, so Yoko just continued to beat him up and eventually hit the I can't remember what Yoko's finishing move is, but he hit it. Jake then started to disrobe, at which point the feed was cut off immediately. Now, this was a low point, as you can guess, for Jake the Snake Roberts, that he probably does not want to remember, though I doubt he can with the amount of alcohol he drank that night. Yoko didn't wrestle for very much longer. He actually died 6 months or a year later because he was so big. There was a reason a lot of these older guys weren't wrestling still, and that was because they didn't have it anymore. Now, this full show, this full 3 hour show, is available on YouTube, and I don't recommend you watch it. But if you want to see something really bad, you can watch it. It's called Heroes of Wrestling from 1999. I do recommend you watch Jake's promo from Heroes of Wrestling, which is also available on YouTube and is absolutely hilarious because he makes no sense, barely mentions Jim Neidhart, and then it's just a random rant about gambling. So needless to say, there were no more of these. And it was a low point in wrestling. Which, just Jake's antics are hilarious. Which I shouldn't be laughing at them because at one point I was a falling down drunk and I did stupid shit. Which I today laugh at. So join me next time when we'll also look at something that happened in wrestling history.